What's up, everybody? This is Ripples in Wales, back for another video. I hope you're doing well and having a great day wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing. Well, good morning to you all. I got up early this morning with a spring in my step. There's a lot going on. I kind of felt this change occur the past few days. There's a shift that's occurring. Hard to describe what I mean by that, but there's stuff that's unraveling very quickly in the financial systems. There's stuff that's coming out very quickly, and everything is, I said to you before, I think many times on these videos, I feel that there's going to be a condensing and a compressing of the timelines as we move in towards December of this year, especially from September, October, November, December. And it's happening as I felt. And the things that I'm spotting in the wild, are kind of backing up the old stuff that we were going over back in 2017, 18, 19, 20. It could go on. Some of us who have been down this trail for a while, the OGs in this place, they will recognize some of these things, especially to do with Satoshi. Now, there was an account that's been reactivated. I covered it in my video yesterday. If you haven't seen that, go back to it. That started tweeting out, and according to the Twitter algorithm, it's owned by Craig White, and that's of irrelevance to me. It doesn't really matter. The fact is that the Twitter account's gone live again. See, people miss the point and don't really understand how these things work. When things get activated, they're at a significant time. You must understand that. Like with any of the things that are posted, the timing is of the essence and it's of the importance. Anyway, I want to reiterate that to you. There's many accounts looking at this Satoshi account here saying, it's bullshit, it doesn't really matter. No, it really, really matters. It doesn't matter if it's Craig tweeting or not. What he's telling you, he's drawing your attention to something. Now, another tweet came out yesterday by Satoshi, and I think it's going to continue. It says, Bitcoin was created for everyone. The next halving is an important predicted occurrence when transaction fees are meant to start to supplement the mining subsidy. Now, that's really interesting, because if the transaction fees are to supplement the mining subsidy, then it means the transaction fees are going to go up. If I'm not mistaken, you got the good guys in the POW who want to kind of run that past and leave a comment in. I believe that the transaction fees are going to increase because they're helping the mining community. So that's interesting, first of all. And then it goes on to say, there are many who do not want you to know the truth. It is not that they want to silence the account, they want to silence you. 2024 is the year of the dragon. Very important again. Don't get lost in the weeds here. There's two parts of really important information here. One is that the next halving may increase transaction fees because they've got to supplement the mining. Now, if this is Craig White saying that, there is a good argument that Craig is part of Satoshi. Okay, whether he's not the original one, I know that. There's a lot of people that have found out that he's full of shit. I know that. However, he has connections into that group, and I guess he was on the outside of it, and I guess his feathers have been ruffled because he hasn't been given credit for contributions to some sort of endeavor within the Bitcoin movement back in the very, very early days. Okay, and that's important to understand, that when we're looking at Satoshi was not one, it was a group, okay? There's no doubt about that, and we'll go over that shortly. And I think what he's drawing people's attention to is that things are going to change in the algorithm of Bitcoin. Now, I need to dig deeper into this, and I will dig deeper. So it's a warning flag. 2024 is the year of the dragon. Now, we talked about this, that the Chinese New Year, it brings in 2024, it brings into the year of the dragon. 24 is the symbol of X, okay? And we talked about that before, okay? 2024, the year of the dragon. 24 is the symbol of X in the alphanumerical alphabet, and how that's worked is X is the 24th letter in the English alphabet. That's really important. They tie everything in with alphanumerics, okay? Now, Twitter's rebranded itself as X. XRP is, X means non-domicile in payments, and you can see that there's the timing of this is born of stars. Do you get to see how this is created? This is bordering on, like a 20, 30 year creation. You can see how they've been timing this in. The Ripple Riddle video, Born of Stars. This is what it's pointing you towards. And obviously, we have Brad Garlinghouse's tattoo, Saturnian. Yeah? Do you remember the rings of Saturn on it? Do you remember the Ripple Riddler video, Born of Stars, when you've got Saturn in the sky as the Ripple Riddler's playing his piano? Same things, Saturnian influences. Anyway, I've got to thank What's Above Crypto about that little comment. I'm learning a lot about the deep astrological stuff from his account. Anyhow, Satoshi tweeted this out yesterday. Now, we know a couple of days ago, David Schwartz, where are we? David Schwartz tweeted out, I'm just going to start my new computer up for the first time in a while. And, it had a DVD-ROM on it, which was, see if we can find it here. When was the last time you put a CD or DVD into a computer? I just went to clean up part of my desktop and saw the DVD drive under the panel, and I was a bit surprised to see it. Okay, 14 hours ago, on October the 2nd, he tweeted this out, and within an hour before that, the Satoshi account had rebooted. Now, there is no coincidences. There are a number of people who would have been part of Satoshi, even though we'll go over David's connection to Satoshi a little bit later, but the point is that is a very old computer, and he's pointing you to it. And this is how David does things: is he works in deep riddles by posting things like that. Now, the original tweet that Satoshi put out yesterday was this tweet here, and this came out within an hour of David booting his computer. Bitcoin is a predicate machine. Over the following months, we shall explore different aspects that are not explicitly contained within the white paper. Now, is he pointing you to something here to say, listen, there are shortfalls to this that we haven't discussed? These aspects are all parts of Bitcoin and are important. They're bringing you into a kind of position to say, hey, you need to look at this, okay? Some of these ideas were touched upon in the early years. Now is the time to extrapolate and explain. They're bringing out information about Bitcoin that people are not so clued in about. And we need to look at this closely, all right? Anyhow, the reason I bring you into today's video is we'll cover this first, and we'll do another video on the other stuff. The Ripple SEC appeal has been, the SEC interlocutory appeal has been denied this morning. I covered this on my account earlier on today. This is at Ripples in Wales. Please follow me here. Should have started with that. I've dropped a few tweets earlier on regarding the interlocutory appeal. Federal judge rejected the SEC's bid to appeal its ground-shaking loss against Ripple. So that's them. They either go to trial now, which will be, we'll go do another video on this. Is really interesting about the trial dates and also the dates of submission for meeting in New York to discuss pre-trial. Again, very interesting. Okay, so I've just, mic drop. Ruling remains XRP is a security. Don't worry about it, guys. We've got this. XRP is a non-security. You're in the right token at the right times. Trust your intuition. You're here for a reason. All of you conscious souls who listen to this. Right. We're going to cover that a little bit later on anyway, but I want to bring you to an amazing thing I found. Now, on the Ripple website, there is 2 or 3 areas where you can get content. There's a content library, and the content library is at the bottom of the page. You'll find it here. I think it's their content library, and there's also a blog. Now, back in the early days, there was various forms of content coming out by Ripple, and I consumed most of it. There's the blog here, and the blog goes all the way back to 2013. There are some gems in here. You go back to page 84, and we've got 2013. Okay, October the 31st being the first publication. Now, Ripple really started their journey many moons ago, but the code was getting vetted in about 2012. So they really knew that they had something before 2012, 2010, 11, 12. Now, there's a lot of importance in that, is that, that Ripple has been making its way through the world, trying to, describe their mission, what the token does, what the XRPL does, and how it can aid governments and banks and institutions around the world. So they've been on this mission for a long time. And in the early days, one of the forms of the contents they released was this. It was a podcast called Blockstars. And just let me get a timestamp on this. 34 minutes, right? We'll go back a little bit. All episodes, they had a kind of bit of a patch with this, where they stopped and started. So it started in April 22nd, 2020, which is rather interesting dates and times. Didn't see that. And then it went through 2020 during lockdown for a little bit, and I think it paused out in May the 10th, 2022 was the... Oh no, there was... Sorry, so October... Roughly October... Yeah, sorry, October... Sorry, stopped on October 21st, 2020, and then it rebooted in May 2022. Now, there isn't a huge amount of these episodes yet, but they're really good, these Blockstars. Anyway, I want to bring you into one of them here, and this is really important. So I'm going to kind of preface this before... Hold on, I've got to bring this up here and pause it a different way.
Welcome to Blockstars, Ripple's podcast that features leaders in crypto and blockchain to discuss the basics of these technologies, the current landscape, and the real-world problems being solved. I'm your host, Ripple CTO and XRP Ledger co-founder David Schwartz, and I'm joined today with Ripple co-founder and executive chairman Chris Larson. Great to have...
Right, so that's the most important, right? And I want to bring you into 34 minutes. So this is a really good podcast. I'll put it in the link in the description. It's really important that you listen to this. This was the early days. They talk about the early days. Chris Larson and David go back to back, talking about all these amazing things that to do with the XRPL, the XRP token. And I really find this fascinating. I love learning about Bitcoin in the early days, and I even love learning about the XRP token in the early days. Excuse me. Let me have a sip of my tea. So what I want to bring you in on, okay, this Blockstars podcast with David Schwartz is with Chris Larson, and I want you to listen to an excerpt at the end of this podcast. And why is this important? David Schwartz at the end of the podcast says to Chris Larson, right, I want you to tell me one of your favourite memories. And he goes, I'm going to go first. I'll tell you one of my favourite memories, or what favourite kind of memories of the Ripple meetings that they had, or something to do with Ripple. And he talks about a memorable meeting. And I'm going to just give you a prelude to this, which is that he goes to meet a very, very famous person in the world of cryptography, cybersecurity, in fact, in that kind of field of cryptography and cybersecurity. And this person is obviously quite a well-established character in the industry, and there are very few of those characters, trust me, because I've been through them. And this particular character was wild. David talks about him having a massive 2 bottles of Tizer and these crisps, and he's going through a whiteboard smashing this or is it Dr. Pepper, not Tizer, beg your pardon. And this character is clearly wild. They don't mention his name for a good reason, because they don't want to have connections between the two. But David Schwartz goes to this particular world-leading cybersecurity expert in 2012 to vet the XRPL code. Now, this is of huge importance. David Schwartz had to go to someone to check his code. Now, there's only one person in the world that was what we class as a kind of, at that time, the best man in the world of cybersecurity and polymath, and that was John Mcafee. So there is no doubt in my mind that this meeting was held with John Mcafee, and I want to play it so you'd have a listen, and then we'll ask why this is important.
And who otherwise aren't going to work with me. So an Internet of Value, again, it's going to be an open, decentralized system with accessibility to all, and completing the picture, which now, again, if you listen to the Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they have calculated, people, those 2 billion people in the developing world, they need to be able to send value.
It's just this running beforehand.
50 cents
Bear with me.
In a way that's economical. And in today's world, that's just not possible. And that's why those billions of people are not being served by banks. Accessibility to all, and in a way that operates not in a way where it's kind of a series of bilateral agreements.
Ripple about finding investment and explaining the technology to people. But there were only 2 meetings that I've ever gone to that I was nervous before. And this one was with a computer security expert. I won't name him because, you'll see why a little later.
I think I remember that meeting.
You know what I'm going to say, right?
Yeah.
So he's a world-famous computer security expert, and you have to remember, this is 2012. The technology had not been looked at by a very large number of people, and certainly not by any world-renowned security expert. And this was new. We were doing things that people had never done before, and obviously we thought it was going to work, and we thought that if there were any issues, we could fix them, but we didn't really know. And so I'm going into this meeting, and part of me is thinking, what if he finds a flaw that I can't fix? Like, what if he finds something fundamental that's wrong with this? And I basically just have to say to everybody, sorry, Chris, I tried. Everybody go home. This just isn't going to work. I mean, that was a very realistic possibility. And so I was quite nervous. And he gets there, and he has a 2-liter of Dr. Pepper, and a second 2-liter as a spare in case he finished that one, and a giant box of taquitos from 7-Eleven. And as we're going from whiteboard to whiteboard, drawing out every piece of the system, he is slamming these Dr. Peppers and taquitos. And that meeting, fortunately, he did not find any serious flaws in the system. But that was just an incredibly surreal experience to me. And I remember just it taking a while before I started to realize, that was when I realized when I had to explain it all to somebody else who was very skeptical, that was when it really gelled in my mind that we really had something, that we had really done something different and something that could really work. And that was kind of when I started to relax a little bit.
I remember that meeting very well. That was a Sunday afternoon. That went on for hours and hours. And the takeaway I had from that was, when David Schwartz is talking, just shut the hell up, because it's like do not get in the way of these two guys. And you guys were just going at it, and it was awesome to see. But it was like, just stand back, don't say a word, and let's see how this all plays out. And that was a pretty cool outcome.
You want to share your story? It could be most favorite or least favorite.
Right, let's pause there. So they went to this meeting to get David's code checked by a world-renowned security expert. The only person that could have been was Mcafee. Mcafee was the apex of the world in cybersecurity. Okay, the top guy, and also the wild one that was always drinking sugar, alcohol. He was just a dopamine fixated dude, wasn't he? And of course, they don't mention his name for obvious reasons. Now, I listened to this podcast 3 years ago whilst I was doing some gardening, and I instantaneously knew it was Mcafee, but they couldn't tie the two together. They couldn't mention his name for obvious reasons, because there was obviously an area of energy around Mcafee that they didn't want to pull to the Ripple brand. But the important thing is this, moving forward. Now, we talked a while ago, John Mcafee had come out with a tweet. Satoshi is, and always has been, the only person it ever could be. Joel Katz, the time is now. Remember, John Mcafee vetted his code. When John Mcafee had gone through the XRPL code, it must have triggered something in his brain to realise, holy shit, we've got another polymath genius here. He went back and looked at David Schwartz patents from the 1980s, and there's undoubtedly, Mcafee was a freaking brain. He worked for NASA. He was a freaking genius, and he knew. And I'm not saying David Schwartz is Satoshi. What I'm saying is David Schwartz was probably part of Satoshi. Now, let's move on. Now, Forbes articles covered this before, and Mcafee thinks he solved Bitcoin's greatest mystery, who Satoshi is. This article is more than 3 years old. Now, he doesn't really. This is paywalled, I think, is it not? Here we go. Mcafee, the outspoken antivirus software developer, tuned curveball US President Kansas, says he's 99% sure he knows the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, the author of the Bitcoin white paper, thought to be a pseudonym. It was a team of 11 people over a period of 5 years that they came up eventually with Bitcoin, Mcafee told Bitcoin and cryptocurrency website Cointelegraph. Here, listen to that. It's a team of 11 people over a period of 5 years that came up eventually with the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency Cointelegraph, he told Virtual Sidelines. Right. How they decided who would write the paper, I don't know. But anybody who wants to know who it is, you know who the options are. You've got Craig Wright, possibly. I'm not going to name everyone else, otherwise you'll figure it out who it is. But somebody wrote the white paper. Now, Mcafee pointed to 2 language quirks as helping narrow down the potential developers. Now, back in the day, this guy was, like I said to you, he was amazing. He would have found whoever needed to be. He solved many, many bounties. He was an amazing hacker. Anyway, Mcafee also claimed the format of the document was identical to documents that Satoshi Nakamoto had published professionally, making it relatively easy for anyone to figure out. Okay, so we're going to just jump from that. Also, Cointelegraph covered it back in the day, and we're going to do an entire video on this because all roads lead to Ripple on this. Okay, another article here, John Mcafee is 99%. I'll put them in the links in the description. You can read them later on at the time. Now, back in the day, we had a few tweets that came out in time saying, Nick Bogalis, who is the chief troller of the XRP community, I'm not a big fan. He's arrogant. He's got sometimes a very fiery temperament, and he's very rude to certain people in the community. And okay, I understand people are spreading shit around. However, Nick Bogalis was the fucking guy who had the phoenix rising in his backgrounds in his templates on Twitter for a number of years. He also was the same guy carrying the fucking blue brick. So for him to throw stones through the windows, I'd like to call Nick out and say, listen, mate, you're the one trolling other people. However, you were the cryptographer also that was hinting for all of us to look down the same avenues as we were looking back down 4 years ago on this. And, he was vehemently defensive regarding anyone who talked about riddlers, yet he was one of the riddlers creators. Make no mistake about it, this chap here. Now he's moved on to other pastures, but him, Schwartz and other people were the same people. And it fires me up when I see Nick being so rude to people. Because what we've got is someone covering their tracks kind of thing. Anyhow, we'll move on to another tweet I've got here, which is Bob Way, back in the day, one of the first guys that, one of the first 6 to 7 people working at Ripple. He is one of the chief people in this game, and he comes out with a tweet. I had a pretty good argument for why David Schwartz is Satoshi. However, he says it isn't true. It's still a great rumor though, and this was in XRP chat back in the day. Bob Way was very, very prevalent at XRP chat, and he even pushes across why he thinks David Schwartz was Satoshi. Now, of course, David denies the fact he's Satoshi, and we can look at a various tweet. He said, it's much more plausible to say that I was one of the people involved than that I was Satoshi, similar to what John Mcafee is saying. I certainly could have been one of the people involved, but unfortunately for me, I didn't find out about Bitcoin until 2011. Now that, at the bottom, is a riddle. Okay, I don't know how to solve that riddle, but unfortunately for me, I didn't find out about Bitcoin until 2011. Now, I think that he's riddling in his normal way there. I do think he was part of Satoshi. And I think with this change and unraveling and these news bits that are coming out about Bitcoin, about the early white paper and stuff, I can see this going full circle. And I could just see a situation where we see a disclosing of who the Satoshi members are in due course, and all roads leading back to Ripple. And in that case, there's going to be pandemonium that breaks out in the markets, because people will realize that some of the founders of the Bitcoin network and the Bitcoin white paper certainly were members of Ripple in the early days. We've got Arthur Brito, we've got Satoshi, we've got David Schwartz. I've got a funny feeling there are more. I don't know. The team of 11 can go back into the Half any days, and God rest his soul, and people like that. Anyway, you can see how all these roads are lining up. Now, Mcafee was the smart person and the linchpin in this, and he had kind of broken off a layer for me there 3 years ago when I looked at the... and I might tie this up finally. We're 23 minutes in here, but I want to close it off with this. The bearable guy stuff, as in the cryptography, the clues laid in, are very similar to what Satoshi lays down. And I've been covering these for 3 years, as in I've been going through them. The cryptographic clues are very similar. Okay, I'm just going to lay that out for you. I'm not going to say bearable guy is Satoshi, but what I could say is that there is very, very strong links. And there's empirical evidence pointing towards that. We'll leave it at that. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video. Please share it, please like it, please subscribe, please drop a comment, come and say hello. I'll look forward to see you all in the next video. Be blessed.